If you had only one spear left in your hand, and in the freezing darkness before you, a wild wolf appeared, staring straight at you, what would you do? Would you throw the spear before it lunged? Or would you turn and run, accepting the loss of your tribe's last bit of food in exchange for your life? Now imagine that this decision is not happening today, but roughly 15,000 years ago. The world then was completely no cities, no farms, no fences, no dogs barking from backyards every morning. There were only icy plains stretching all the way to the horizon. Dark forests with no visible end, and countless predators waiting for just one careless moment. You sit close to a small fire with the people of your tribe. The weak flames flicker across faces, exhausted after many days of field hunting. The smell of roasted meat has just begun to spread through the air when a dark shadow quietly appears at the edge of the light. Not a bear, not a hyena, but a gray wolf. It does not growl, it does not charge, it does not run away either. It simply stands there, silently watching every movement of the and you stare back at it. Between two predator species facing each other, only the crackling of burning woods break the silence. According to every law of nature, that encounter should have ended in blood. One side should have died, or both should have remained enemies forever. But the strangest thing in the history of evolution began precisely because nothing happened. No one knows the name of the person who sat beside that fire, and no one knows how much longer that wolf. Yet it is very possible that those ordinary encounters, so ordinary that no one would have remembered them, quietly wrote the first chapter of a story that would last for 15 millennia. A story whose ending now lies inside the homes of hundreds of millions of people around the world. Most of us grew up with a very simple explanation. Humans captured wolf pups, raised them, domesticated them, and eventually created dogs. It sounds reasonable, it also sounds very intuitive. There is only one problem. More and more evidence from archaeology, genetics, and behavioral science suggests that this story may never have happened the way we have always imagined. What created first dog may not have been human power, not chains, not commands, perhaps not even friendship at the beginning. It may have begun with something that seemed incredibly small. Tolerance. A few wolves that were less aggressive than the others. A few humans who were less afraid than the rest, and thousands of years of silent natural selection unfolding around the fires of the Ice Age. If that is true, then perhaps we have misunderstood one of humanity's oldest religions. Because this is not the story of humans conquering wolves. It is the story of two predator species, seemingly destined to compete with each other, accidentally changing each other's fate, and eventually changing the history of the world together. In today's video, we will follow each archaeological trait, each genetic clue, and the famous scientific experiments that reveal a truth even stranger than legend. Dogs may not have been created by humans at all. They may have actively stepped into our world themselves. And when that happened, it was not only wolves that changed forever. Human beings, too, began to become something different. To understand how dogs came to exist, we must forget the image of a loyal companion lying quietly at our feet. Because when this story began, there were no dogs anywhere on Earth. There were only wolves. The gray wolves of the Ice Age were not gentle shadows wandering near human camps. They were intelligent, organized predators, capable of hunting in packs, communicating through subtle signals, and pursuing prey across vast frozen landscapes. Their endurance, sense of smell, and social coordination make them one of the most successful hunters of their world. And strangely, humans were becoming successful for many of the same reasons. We hunted in groups, we shared food, we protected one another, we raised children not as isolated individuals, but as communities. In that sense, humans and wolves were not simply neighbors. They were competitors. Both followed the same herds. Both watched the same migration route. Both survived by cooperation, intelligence, and patience. From an evolutionary point of view, the two species should have remained rivals. And yet, something changed. Scientists today understand dogs not as a completely separate origin, but as descendants of gray wolves. The mystery is not where dogs came from. The mystery is why some wolves began moving closer to humans instead of avoiding. For a long time, people imagined that humans deliberately captured wolf pups and slowly trained them into dogs, but many researchers now suggest a quieter possibility. Perhaps humans did not seek out wolves first. Perhaps certain wolves began seeking out humans. Near the end of the Ice Age, a hunter-gatherer camp was not only a place of danger. For a hungry wolf, it was also a place of opportunity. After meals, humans left behind bones, organs, hides, and scraps that still carried value for any animal desperate enough to approach. But not every wolf could do this. The most aggressive wolves risked being killed. The most fearful wolves never came close enough to benefit. Only those with just the right temperament, cautious, calm, and bold enough to wait near the edge of the firelight, could take advantage of this new food source. And that small difference may have changed everything. Over generations, wolves that tolerated humans had a better chance of surviving near camp. They found more predictable food, they used less energy, they avoided some of the dangers of constant hunting. And if they survived more often, they also reproduced more often. No one planned this, no one woke up and decided to create the first dog. There was no first leash, no first command, no single moment when a wolf suddenly became a dog. Instead, there were countless small encounters repeated across thousands of years. A wolf waiting near camp, a human choosing not to attack, scraps left behind, fear reduced by one tiny degree. Evolution often works this way. Not through dramatic transformations, but through small advantages, repeated so many times that eventually an entirely new path appears. At first, it may seem surprising that the dog could begin with nothing more than discarded scraps of food. But evolution rarely depends on dramatic movements. More often, it is driven by countless small advantages repeated across generations. Imagine prehistoric hunters returning with a successful kill. After feeding the tribe, bones, tendons, hides, and leftover meat remained scattered around the campsite. For most predators, approaching humans was simply too dangerous. For a few unusually tolerant wolves, however, the reward outweighed the risk. Instead of chasing prey across frozen plains for hours, they could obtain food while spending only a fraction of the energy. That single advantage slowly reshaped the population. Generation after generation, calmer wolves survived more often and passed those traits to the offspring. Each change was almost invisible on its own, but over thousands of years, those tiny differences accumulated into a profound transformation. One population remained fully wild, another became increasingly adapted to living alongside humans. The shift was so gradual that no one living at the time would have recognized it. And scientists uncovered something even more remarkable. Selecting for behavior did not change temperament alone, it also changed the body. One of the strongest demonstrations came from the famous Soviet fox experiment led by geneticist Dmitry Belyaev. His question was simple. What would happen if, in every generation, only the friendliest foxes were allowed to reproduce? He ignored strength. He ignored appearance. He selected only for reduced fear of humans. The results astonished researchers. Within only a few dozen generations, the foxes became noticeably calmer. They sought human contact, wagged their tails, and behaved in ways strikingly similar to domestic dogs. And even more surprising, their appearance changed as well. Some developed floppy ears, others grew curled tails. White patches appeared in their coats. Their skulls and facial structure gradually shifted. Today, these linked behavioral and physical changes are known as the domestication syndrome. The experiment did not recreate the exact origin of dogs, but it demonstrated a powerful principle. Selecting for friendliness alone can trigger widespread biological change. If that could happen in only a few decades under controlled breeding, imagine what thousands of years of natural selection around human camps might have achieved. By then, the relationship between humans and these gentler wolves had become more than an exchange of food. It had become mutually beneficial. Wolves possessed sharper hearing and an extraordinary sense of smell. They could detect predators or unfamiliar people long before humans noticed any danger. Humans, in return, unintentionally provided a more predictable source of food than the uncertainty of constant hunting. Neither side planned this partnership. No treaty was signed. No agreement was spoken. Evolution simply favored the relationship because both species benefited from it. Biologists call this process co-evolution. Over time, each species influenced the evolution of the other. Perhaps humans were never creating obedient servant. Perhaps they were unknowingly forming one of the most successful partnerships in evolutionary history. As generations passed, these early dogs developed abilities that set them apart from their wolf ancestors. They became exceptionally skilled at understanding. Few animals naturally follow a pointing finger or interpret the direction of a person's gaze. Dogs do. They read our faces, our voices. and even subtle gestures with remarkable accuracy. Even chimpanzees, our closest living relatives, do not consistently interpret human social signals as effectively as dogs. That suggests thousands of years living beside humans reshaped the canine mind itself. Researchers have discovered something even more extraordinary. When dogs and their owners maintain eye contact, both experience increased level of oxytocin, a hormone strongly associated with trust, bonding, and parental attachment. The connection between humans and dogs is therefore more than emotional. It's biological. Few relationships between humans and another species displayed such measurable mutual bonding. By this point, dogs had become far more than hunting companions or early warning systems. They had become trusted members of human community. Perhaps the clearest evidence that the relationship between humans and dogs had fundamentally changed is found not on ancient hunting grounds, but beneath the earth. Archaeologists have uncovered graves where humans and dogs were buried together. In some cases, the dogs were placed carefully beside their owners rather than discarded like ordinary animals. Such burials suggest that, for many communities, dogs has become more than useful hunting partners. They had become companions. Dogs still hunted, guarded camps, and warned of danger, yet the archaeological evidence points to a relationship that extended beyond survival alone. Some injured or aging dogs appear to have been cared for long after they could no longer contribute to hunting. From a purely practical perspective, this offered little immediate advantage. From a human perspective, however, it revealed something profound. Across thousands of years, cooperation gradually became companionship. Trust slowly became affection. For perhaps the first time in history, two different predator species formed a lasting social bond that reached beyond simple necessity. Yet evolution did not stop there. For most of this story, humans had not intentionally created dogs. They had merely created the conditions in which natural selection could unfold. Eventually, however, people began making deliberate choices. As permanent settlements and agriculture emerged, dogs were no longer valued simply because they stayed near humans. They were selected for specific ability. Fast, agile dogs assisted hunters. Powerful dogs protected livestock and settlement. In northern regions, stronger, more enduring dogs pulled sleds across frozen landscapes. Generation after generation, people increasingly bred individuals that excelled at particular tasks. At that point, natural selection gradually gave way to artificial selection. From a single grey wolf ancestor emerged an astonishing diversity of dogs. Some remained small enough to be carried with ease. Others grew larger than an adult human. Some possessed extraordinary senses of smell. Others became renowned for speed, strength, endurance, or herding instinct. Few mammals display such remarkable diversity while sharing the same ancestral origin. Yet despite these differences, every modern dog still carries echoes of its ancient past. Hidden beneath thousands of years of selective breeding lies the legacy of wolves that once stood silently beyond the glow of Ice Age campfires. That journey continues even today. Every morning, millions of dogs wait patiently for the people they recognize. They greet familiar footsteps with excitement, rest beside us after long days, and share our homes as members of our family. It is easy to forget that their ancestors were once among the world's most capable wild predators. Yet evolution is filled with transformations like this. The relationship between humans and dogs never stopped evolving. We continue to study their intelligence, improve their health, and better understand their emotional lives. Meanwhile, dogs continue adapting to human society, assisting people with disabilities, supporting search and rescue, protecting communities, and working beside us in environments their wolf ancestors could never have imagined. Perhaps the most extraordinary part of this story is not that wolves became dogs. It is that after thousands of years, both species are still evolving together. And that realization leads us toward an even deeper truth. Perhaps this has never been only the story of dogs. Perhaps it has always been a story about humanity itself. As we reach the end of this extraordinary journey, perhaps the greatest surprise is not that wolves became dogs. It is that neither species changed alone. 15,000 years ago, a human and a wolf may have stood only a few meters apart, separated by fear, instinct, and uncertainty. Neither could have imagined that countless quiet encounters like that would reshape the future of both species. For generations, the relationship was built on no grand plan, no contracts, no commands, no deliberate design. Only small choices repeated over 1,000 of a wolf that hesitated before attacking, a human who chose tolerance instead of violence, a campfire that offered both danger and opportunity. Those seemingly insignificant moments became the foundation of one of the longest and most successful partnerships in evolutionary history. Today, dogs are often described as humanity's best friend. But perhaps that phrase does not go far enough. Dogs are not simply companions that followed us through history. They helped us shape the very history we inherited. Their remarkable senses strengthened our ability to hunt and survive. Their loyalty transformed cooperation into companionship. Their presence became woven into our settlements, our cultures, our myths, and eventually our family. At the same time, humans transformed them as well. Together, our two species changed each other's biology, behavior, and destiny in ways that no one standing beside an Ice Age campfire could ever have imagined. Even now, that story continues. Every joyful greeting at the front door, every quiet walk through a park, every service dog guiding someone safely across a busy street, every search and rescue dog risking his life to save another, these are not isolated moments. They are the newest chapters in a story that began long before written history. Perhaps the greatest lesson is not about domestication. It is about evolution itself. Evolution is not driven only by competition. Sometimes the most powerful force is cooperation. Sometimes survival belongs not to the strongest individual, but to those capable of building trust across impossible boundaries. And perhaps that is why, when a dog looks into your eyes today, you're witnessing far more than affection. You are witnessing the living legacy of thousands of generations that gradually learned to understand other species. A partnership forged through patience, strengthened through mutual benefit, and preserved by trust. It reminds us that history is not always shaped by great battles or extraordinary invention. Sometimes history changes because two strangers choose not to become enemies. If today's journey has changed the way you see dogs, or even the story of humanity itself, I would love to hear your thoughts. What do you believe that was the true turning point that transformed wolves and humans from rivals into lifelong companions? Was it survival, shared opportunity, or was it simply trust, repeated across countless generations? Leave your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy exploring the hidden stories of anthropology, archaeology, evolution, and the forgotten lives of our ancestors, be sure to subscribe and turn on notifications so you won't miss future documentaries. And if you're ready for another journey into humanity's distant past, watch the next episode, How Wealthy Ancient Humans Really Live. You may discover that wealth in prehistory had very little to do with gold or precious stones, and everything to do with survival, knowledge, and the power of community. Thank you for watching. I'll see you in the next journey through our shared human story.